Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. 6 years ago, I can't believe it was freaking 6 years ago, I interviewed a brand new marketing person for our company. And she has not only stood the test of time, but she continues to just produce unbelievably high quality content for us, including this podcast that you're listening to. Our guest today is Jessica Brown. Now, what we're going to talk about today is actually a result of some other marketing that Jessica and I and the team at ProudMouth do, because we're doing webinars every other week. And one of the ones that got the most attendance was how to increase your engagement on LinkedIn. And we had just some simple tips and tricks that work very, very well. And it was so well received and we had so many questions that we decided that we needed to turn this into a podcast. So 6 years later, Jessica, even though I literally saw you yesterday, welcome back to the show.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe I'm here coming out from behind the scenes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, so all of us want to have the same thing happen on LinkedIn. We want to increase our impressions. We want to increase our likes. We want to increase our comments. And what would be even better is if we could get other people to share. But let's start with an operational definition. What do we refer to and how do we define engagement? And more importantly, why is it so vital for advisors to do it?
For sure. According to LinkedIn, engagement is the post total number of reactions, comments, and reposts. Sometimes I call them shares, so you might hear me say that on this episode. But I do want to say two things before we get too far into this. This conversation is not about letting LinkedIn dictate your content strategy, like, ooh, let's just do what LinkedIn likes. Advisors really need to have a strategy in place where they're consistently and repetitively sharing their unique perspectives, the problems they share for a specific audience, and sharing who they are as a person. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing, this is not about chasing after engagement. We've all probably been guilty of that at some point. But the truth is, not everything you post is going to get high engagement. It's not going to perform how you hoped. And that really is just part of the LinkedIn and social media experience. It's really about continuing to show up with a strategy in place. And the truth is, Matt, some people are just not going to engage with your posts. But that doesn't mean they're not reading them, watching, and forming a really favorable impression of you. We don't hear from everyone, right? So getting back to your question though, of why does engagement matter? It matters because it does boost our awareness. When people engage with our post, the LinkedIn algorithm shares it with more people. That gives us more visibility, gets us in front of new people, increases social proof. If we see that a post has several reactions and comments, we might take it just a little bit more seriously or be a little more enticed to it. That is just human nature. And comments in particular, what a great opportunity to start speaking directly to your audience. So those are the main benefits.
Yeah, and our whole mission here is to, obviously help advisors stop being the best kept secret in their area. And we know that a strong foundation of social proof makes a humongous difference in just the overall, as you had said, awareness. But it's not, Jessica, you and I talk about this a lot. I can write, you can write, ProudMouth can write the greatest post that we've ever written in the whole wide world, and like 10 people see it, right? It can get really, really discouraging, but I think the numbers are very, very important to actually quantify what's really happening across the LinkedIn spectrum. And you did some research on the Social Insider 2024 LinkedIn benchmark report. Now, Jessica, before you dive into this, when we did this in the webinar, I have to say, and I want to just preface this to the audience, this was super discouraging to me, the numbers that you're about to share, because, so many of us work so hard to put out this amazing content, and just really a fraction of the amount of people we want to see it we'll see it. But I want to have everybody stay tuned, because in the third part of this episode, we're going to talk about proven things that you can do to increase those. So make sure you stay tuned. Okay, Jessica, let's dive into this Social Insider report.
Okay. So, Social Insider, first of all, is a social media analytics company. So, great resource. And for their methodology, their data set included accounts with an active presence between January 2022 and December 2023. They only included pages with followers between 1,000 and 1,000,000 because they didn't want to include any outliers that would skew average engagement or impressions. Okay. And now that we have that out of the way, I'd like to talk about a few of their findings. So, the finding number one, multi image posts generate the highest amount of likes and comments on LinkedIn. And this was especially the case for pages with 100,000 plus followers. But this comment or this content type was still holding its own for pages with 0 to 5,000 followers, which is probably where, most of our listeners are at. So multi-image post, what that is, that's the upload of multiple photos at once. That's how Social Insider describes it, displayed similarly to an album. Because I thought maybe this was carousel posts at first, and I thought, oh yeah, for sure. But it's actually no, it's multiple photos. And Social Insider says that native documents, say uploading a PDF, and single image posts are also highly engaging. So don't just like throw those away and only find ways to do multi-image. Do them all. But there was something really special happening for multiple photos. Matt, what's your take on this?
Well, so we just got back from Future Proof, and I can't tell you how many times I was clicking on, pictures of my friends who took multiple pictures, and in all of that. It just makes sense. I want to know more. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people really miss with social. And again, gosh, I just feel like I say this so much, Jessica. It's social. Even LinkedIn is supposed to be social. And the more social you can be, the more engagement's going to be. And that's why the multi-image thing, or natively uploaded things, which, by the way, they want you to natively upload things because then it's on LinkedIn's platform and then people aren't going to click away. But yeah, that's, yeah, that totally makes sense to me. And I mean, that's part of our strategy when we're working on LinkedIn stuff too. So, okay. So now, we talk about this a lot, and this was a big change that we did here at ProudMouth, really about 6-7 months ago, was we started producing video for our clients, and there was a reason for that. So do you want to talk about the reason why we did that?
Wait, Matt, sorry, can we stop for a sec?
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about the multiple images?
Sure.
I just wanted to mention the short captions and some more ideas. And I don't know the answer to your question that you just asked.
Oh, it was your finding number two.
Oh.
I was just keying you into finding number two.
Okay.
So let me rewind here.
Yeah.
All right. So instead of going right to the question about video, I will tee you back up with a follow-up question to the images. Okay, ready?
Okay. Cool.
We have done this often, right? With the multiple images and just making sure that people are clicking in. And I absolutely love seeing multiple images from conferences that I've gone to, because I like seeing other people's experiences, right? That's the aspect of social media that is incredibly important. It has to have a social component to it, but it's not just posting one or two images, right? There are other things about this that make posts more successful. So would you mind sharing some of the other things that are important when it comes to these sorts of posts?
Well, the major thing that Social Insider pointed out, and I was surprised, they said if you want to increase your engagement like big time with multiple images, pair it with a short caption. And I'm talking under 19 words. Like,
oh, geez.
Yeah, that is like nothing. But at the same time, this study is looking at some really big pages. I could see some bigger brands doing some, I don't know, like multiple GIFs and a short caption.
Mhm.
So maybe that's where I see this coming in. But I think, hey, why not try it out? Try. I'm such an advocate of experimenting with lengths of a post, see what resonates with your audience, and see what people respond to. It's funny that you mentioned future proof, actually, because just when I think about the multiple images, I was thinking of all these wonderful posts I've seen of advisors and marketers sharing their experiences. And this post type is such a great opportunity to show your clients and prospects that you are out there in the community, you are educating yourself.
Mhm.
If you're giving some sort of educational talk and just giving back, it's like, oh, people want to see that and know that you're part of a bigger purpose. Like younger generations, I think, especially love that. And just on a slightly different note, I saw a really cool example of this multi-image post by an advisor named Daniel Goodman, and he's actually a member of our academy. He shared two images, now side by side, of course. Now, one of them was a family photo, him and his wife and their four children, including like, the most adorable baby. So wonderful, like the perfect family photo. And then you probably know where I'm going with this. On the other side was the outtakes. And so he was talking all about the unexpected aspects of our lives. And I thought, oh my gosh, the multi-image post could be such a great way to show people those outtakes. What's behind the highlight reel. So really,
Yeah.
really cool.
You actually had shared that post. We have a chat in our internal communication thing, and it's called social media posts we're sharing, or just people get to see, and that was posted in there, and it was just so wonderful to see that level of human engagement. Now, one of the other more powerful ways of human engagement is video, right? So we at ProudMouth about 6-7 months ago really implemented full video for our clients, including YouTube Shorts. And there's a reason we did this, Jessica. So why did ProudMouth lean so heavily into video?
Because it's incredibly, incredibly shareable. Is there anything you would add to that, Matt?
No, I mean, oh
Yeah.
my God. So
Yeah.
that's the funny thing. It's so easy to, if I want somebody to get the essence of Jessica, I'm going to share a Jessica video,
Right.
right? I mean, because I get to feel you and hear you and just kind of sense who you are and what you do, your mannerisms, your speech patterns. We are so visually stimulated as an evolutionary human being, right? I mean, our eyes are just one of the most important things that we can focus on. And also it gets people's attention because moving things get our attention. But there's some data behind this. So do you have any sort of statistics or some analogies or stories to tell about the different people who are doing the stuff with videos?
Right. Well, I can absolutely back up what you're saying. Social Insider can. Their second finding was that videos are the most shared content type on LinkedIn. They said that video isn't the most engaging content type,
Mm.
and they put in parenthesis yet. So I'm like, okay, are they, they're
Ah.
expecting it to be maybe. And I think by not the most engaging, they're saying it's not getting the most reactions and comments, but people are sharing that content. And that means more impressions, which means more awareness. So that is a good thing for you, for our advisors. And, just because their study found that videos aren't the most engaging yet, doesn't mean that it will, that'll be the case for our listeners. Always experiment and see what's working for your audience. I do want to give a shout out to the amazing Ben Galloway. Matt, a while ago, you asked in a post on LinkedIn, what was it? You asked, what makes you engage with a
Yeah.
post? And Ben gave such a great answer that I want to highlight here. He said, I want to engage when the post, number one, aligns with my interests or values. Number two, solves a problem I have. Number three, surprises me or catches me off guard. Number four, provides value to my network, and I want them to see it too.
Mhm.
So that fourth one provides value to my network. You know, Something to consider is when you're creating video, any kind of content, is it shareable? Am I creating a resource that my niche will want to share? What do you think, Matt?
Well, I'm a little partial to Ben because I literally just saw him last week for the first time in person, and I spent some time with him. And one of the neatest things, and he wants to engage with polls and aligns with his values, solves a problem, surprises me. One of the things about Ben, and this has been it's been a journey for him because him and I have talked about this before, but when you meet Ben in person, that's exactly who you feel
Mm-hmm.
when you're interacting with him socially. And I can't stress the importance of that, right? Is with if you're doing images, if you're doing text based, if you're doing videos, or this next one that we're going to talk about in just a second, if you're doing any of those things, they really have to be the essence of you.
Yeah.
And if when they are the essence of you, then when you do meet that person in person, like if you're trying to use LinkedIn for prospecting, which by the way we all are, and then when somebody meets you and they're like, oh my God, you're just like you are on LinkedIn, which by the way, I hear that all the time when I'm in sales calls. It's because I am, right? This is who I am. And I want to make sure that that comes across. And so I love the last point, and you highlighted it. I'm just going to put an exclamation point on it. It provides value to my network. So when you're creating content and you're talking to your ideal target market, really keep that in mind. What can I say and how can I say it so that, nurse anesthetists will want to share this with other nurse anesthetists, right? And if you go into it with the right mindset and the right intention, I think you're going to be creating, I don't know, even better stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. So this last one, actually, before we get off of this, I want to just quote something very quickly from the LinkedIn benchmark report. Boy, that's harder to say
I
than I
know.
expected. And there was a number that we had shared in the webinar that was just, it was incredibly discouraging to me. And it's right at the top of the study. And by the way, we're going to have a link to the study in our show notes so you all can click on it. But the average engagement rate by impressions on LinkedIn is 3.85%. So you have to do math, everybody. So you can do all of these hacks, but understand that the average is under 4%. So if you have 10,000 people, right, only you have a potential of really, 3,800 people really seeing it. But that doesn't mean that it's actually going to be seen by them because you have to do all of these other things. And when you said that on the webinar, Jessica, I was incredibly depressed. But multiple images, right? Making sure that you're using video because it seems to be on a massive uptrend. But this third one was really surprising to me, and something that we actually probably should be doing more often here at ProudMouth, which is polls. So let's talk about polls.
I know. This one's surprising and inspiring. The third one is that polls generate the highest impression rate on LinkedIn in 2024. What?
Yeah, I know. What?
When we talked about this on the webinar, I remember one of our attendees was saying that unless the poll is useful, she kind of scrolls by them. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think I might be scrolling by the polls too and not giving them giving them their full appreciation.
Well, but so one of the things that it stops me is if it's easy, right? And I think people get that wrong when it comes to polls.
Mm-hmm.
They just try to make them just too much. Like who was it? Katie Braden, who's a good friend of ours here at ProudMouth, had done a poll a little while ago that was basically something about video, yes or no. It was like, have you incorporated video in your marketing strategy? Yes or no? Just take 2 seconds. It took 2 seconds to read it and 2 seconds to answer it. But that gave her like some data, right? And also, man, her engagement was through the roof on that. So I really, really, really like that. I think it's very interesting to look at the polls, make it super, super easy to engage with. And then when somebody does engage, if you have the opportunity to thank them for the engagement, that's only going to increase it more. Now, you have an example of another one of our clients. Well, actually, Katie's not a client of ours, she's a friend of ours, but a client who did this. So you want to chat about that?
Right. Christine Lucan, she does the pull post time and time again. And I love to see what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
The post that I'm thinking of, she was promoting like soft promotion of an upcoming podcast episode, and she asked her audience, have you ever been the executor of someone's estate? She asked that at the top of the post, and then that was the actual question in the poll. And then she went on to talk about this interview that she had on her podcast that wasn't released yet,
Mm-hmm.
but the title of the podcast was I'm an Executor, Now What? And she said the biggest misconception that that executors experience is they underestimate the time and exhaustion that comes with the role. And then she asked in the post, what is your, do you agree with that? What is your experience? So two questions in that post. Some marketers would say, no, only ask one question. And we'll talk a little bit more about questions in this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but two opportunities for people to contribute to the conversation. And she got something like 40 comments of people talking about their experiences as an executor. And those are so many experiences that Christine can then engage in those conversations, but also use those stories to help promote the episode of hear what executors experience.
So episode promotion there. Content begets more content. She can take any one of those comments or multiple comments and turn that into more social media posts. But I love that she was teasing the episode. And one of the other things I love about that example is if you have been an executor, you're going to read it. And if you haven't been an executor, you're going to read it, because there really is something in there for everybody. Because as we age, most of us are, and I think that was one of the things that she had talked about, a lot of us are going to be an executor of an estate at some point. So this is something you really need to listen to. All right. So as we so now we're at the third section of this. So we basically talked about the overarching stuff on LinkedIn. We talked about some of the things that the Social Insider report told us works. Now we're going to talk about where the rubber meets the road. These are the things that have been proven over time, not just between 2022 and 2023, but over time that we know work really, really well. So let's start with the first one. And you already kind of highlighted it there, which has to do with questions.
Yes. My first tip for sparking more engagement is ask a question. Not just any question, though. Ask an easy question. Please ask an easy question. When you are writing a question for your post, ask yourself, could I myself answer this question? And could I answer it in only a few words? People might end up typing more than a few words, but you want to keep that barrier to entry really, really low, because people aren't invested in sitting and typing out a story on LinkedIn. They don't want to search their soul for an answer. It has to be super, super accessible.
Yeah.
And someone who does this really well is Ariel Lee. Oh my gosh. Her posts are just so fun to read for so many reasons. And one of them, just the unique topics that she brings, the questions she asked. The post that I'm thinking about in particular was about people's life skill blind spots, Matt. At the top of the post, she talked about not being able to whistle and then not having a good sense of direction, which I very, very much relate to. And then at the end, she asked, so I'm dying to know, what's yours? Or if you're superhuman and don't have any, what's the funniest one you've heard of? And that got 90 comments. Because if you have a life skill blind spot, you know what it is. And also another point, Ariel disclosed hers, makes it a little easier to take that step and share mine, even if it's kind of embarrassing.
Well, there's such a human vulnerable aspect to that. In what we're finding more and more is the more real you are without really crossing, lines, which we all know what those lines are, but being real and being vulnerable and just sharing enough to intrigue people. And so, we used to talk about this a lot. Attract, intrigue, engage, and influence are the major, components of attraction marketing and influence acceleration. And so, the second one is intrigue. What can you do that's really, really intriguing? And then you can engage them and then you can influence them, right? it just works really, really well. Now there's another example that I actually didn't understand this until it was shared with me. But do you want to talk about the Justin Timberlake one?
Yeah, this was in the same post by Ariel where she used the PS line. Okay, so the PS line is a great little spot in your post to draw people's attention.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's where people will put the question, or they'll put something they have to include, like Ariel did. And I don't have the entire sentence here, but it was we were approaching May, so she was talking about celebrating it's going to be May and leave ramen out on your doorstep for Justin Timberlake. And we're like, what does that mean during the webinar? And one of our wonderful attendees told us it was related to his hair,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, he had ramen-esque hair. And now that you know that, and if you ever see Justin Timberlake back then when he did, it's what is it? It's gotta be me. It's gonna be me. Is the name of the song. Anyway,
Yeah.
when he says May instead of me, it's absolutely fantastic. But there's so many good. So if you are of that generation, which that would be squarely millennial, right? Just such a magnificent reference for people to lean into and say, oh, like not only that, but she really gets me. And there's just so much in that post specifically. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I agree. And Matt, I'm actually going to jump to a different point because this really segues into it.
Mm,
Bringing pop culture in,
mm,
just because you're an advisor doesn't mean that you always need to be talking about finances. And even when you are talking about finances, it doesn't mean that the conversation that you prompt has to be finance based.
mhm.
And Ariel's, a great example of that. And the reason I bring this up, and this point is actually called break the ice.
Oh,
So the reason I bring this up is that some advisors will say, oh, the only people commenting on my posts are other advisors or service providers who work with advisors like us, Matt. And I hear what they're saying. These are the financial posts, and they're important posts as part of a strategy because they're demonstrating the problem, again, the specific problems you solve for a specific niche. But I question how easy they are for people outside of the financial services industry to jump into the conversation, or how appealing.
mm.
Like, this is a very specific example, but if I were going through a divorce and a post is about divorce, I don't know that I'm going to be like,
Hey, I did too. I'm going through a terrible divorce. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I understand.
yeah. In even lighter topics, like budgeting, I don't know that I really want to identify myself and
Yeah.
talk about finances as just a non-advisor and person of the world. What do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I wholeheartedly, and I think that's where a lot of advisors really fall flat on their LinkedIn engagement. But it's that, so we've talked about this before, which is that 4-to-1 rule, right? So for every 4 professional educational posts, there should be something that you do that's personal. And, and we have seen so many of those. Um, so an advisor, her name is Laura Latourette, and a lot of her stuff is
Mm.
she lives on a farm and she's got crops and she cans and she cooks and she bakes, and that's real organic living, and being of the earth is a huge part of her brand. But then she's just dropping little things in, which we refer to as the sprinkle, even in those posts, that make it so that her life as a very successful, very seasoned, incredibly intelligent financial advisor will still bubble to the top. So I really love that. I think it's really important. Now, you have some ideas to prompt the audience on some really good posts that they can execute here in the very near future and in years to come. You want to share some of those?
I do. I really do. So my first idea is nostalgia. Who doesn't love reveling
Yeah.
in those, happy moments from their childhood, the restaurants they used to visit, the shows they used to watch, the toys they had, things like that. And I was inspired by a post by one of our clients, Mark Hansen, where he talked about how he had, I think he used the word steal, or he obtained
Yes.
some childhood Legos that was at his grandmother's house, and he did a multi-image post where he took, actually showed us the Legos, and I think the year on the bottom of them, or the pending trademark. There was something really cool and really super vintage about it, and he talked about his experience with Legos. So I think that would be such a fun post, is think about one of your favorite childhood toys. What did you love about it? Do you still have it? Do your children play with it? And it doesn't need to be this super profound post. It could be, I love super, or what is it, like the Stretch Armstrong?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
It could be just, you like that Stretch Armstrong was very stretchy, because that, when you're a kid, that is a super, super fun thing. So this is meant to be just a fun, and again, highly, highly engaging post that encourages other people to get involved in the conversation. And just psychologically, people feel positive about nostalgia. That association can move on over to you. So that's a good thing. Matt, do you have
Yeah.
anything to add there about nostalgia?
I've seen so many of them, and they're the ones who really suck me in. I mean, I'm even, so not just on LinkedIn, but on other social media platforms. Some of the people who I follow most closely are people who are doing that. In fact, I met a gentleman, and I just totally spaced on his name, which is terrible, but he's the hip hop financial advisor, and his business card has a QR code on the back that is his current hip hop playlist. It's like in that,
Wow.
now that's not necessarily nostalgia, even though it's wildly nostalgic to me, because that's what I grew up on was hip hop. It's just nostalgia makes a different level of a connection. And I think it's
Mhm.
really important to do that. Now you can also do stuff, when it comes to holidays and holiday traditions. We've actually seen some good stuff there, haven't we?
Yeah, and I'm hoping to see more of it. I always want more of it
Yeah.
this year. So for Halloween, what did you dress up as when you were a kid? This could be a single image post,
Mhm.
or you could do the multi-image post and show your, 3 to 5 favorite costumes. That would be so much fun. And then segueing off that, I think the introduction posts on LinkedIn, or sometimes it's a reintroduction. Once you've all seen this, it's
Yeah.
once you've gained a certain number of followers or you've reached a milestone, you reintroduce yourself to your audience. You talk about what you do professionally, usually your unique value proposition, and then some sort of like random fun facts about your life. I think it'd be so fun to turn these into themes. And immediately I think of a Halloween theme. So what was the favorite thing that you dressed up as? It could be past or present, your
Mhm.
favorite candy, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. I can't say the third one. I think I did. It's such a big thing right now.
Yeah.
You could talk about, weigh in on that movie. Did you like the first one or the second one better or
Mhm.
differently? What do you think? Do you like that, Matt?
Well, yeah, I think one of the posts that we did a little while ago was about your favorite Christmas movie, and it was one of the ones that we just got unbelievable levels of engagement because the question was asked, because I was talking about one of my favorites is Christmas Vacation,
Mhm.
and also I'm a huge fan of Elf and White Christmas, and so we talked about some of those, and then the question at the bottom was what is your favorite Christmas movie, and Kerblanky, right? All of the sudden, it's just like people were just like Christmas, 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 and some of them were not really super Christmas movies. And then there was an argument about is Die Hard a Christmas? It was just absolutely fantastic, and it just allows people to feel like they get to know you better because then when you do have the opportunity and the gift of meeting these people in person, you have a real connection.
Yeah, that reminds me too of when we posted about your rescue dogs, and then
Yeah.
that made it so easy for people who are maybe meeting you for the first time to talk about,
Mhm.
oh, I love your dogs. I have, dog people,
Dog
or
people.
pet people too when they get together. That's such, again, just that icebreaker into building a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, we're gonna need to wrap up here. There's one other thing that you think is a really, really important component when it comes to engagement. And we call this the invisible force. So, do you mind if I take this and then just kind of wrap up the show?
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay. So, I love that it's called the invisible force. And this is something that we do, and we practice this every single solitary day at ProudMouth, is you can't just always comment on your own stuff or be reactive to other people's comments on your posts. You have to actively go out and comment, like, and repost or share from what other people are doing. Now, this works incredibly well on LinkedIn because it actually shows LinkedIn that you are engaged in the platform, and it actually pays you back because the more you like and comment other people's posts, the more your posts are going to show up in their feeds. The other thing that you can do with this, which is really, really important, is tag people who you also want to see the post, which is a really nice, calm way. And by the way, I'm going to say something that's controversial, but I'm going to stand by this. Don't tag more than 3 people in any post. Some of you are tagging like 25 people just to try to get that engagement. Listen, I just don't respond. Now, that's just me, and maybe I'm just a jerk. I don't know. But it just seems like a grab instead of, hey, Jessica, I think you would really like this post. And by the way, that works incredibly well on LinkedIn. So there are some invisible forces from an algorithmic standpoint that work incredibly well. But let's go ahead and kind of just take this from the top. Number one, you have to post on LinkedIn regularly, consistently, with organic content that you are writing yourself. You can't always use other people's content because it doesn't work. Secondly, you're not ever going to get the numbers that you want. Be happy with what you have. Engage with the people who do engage with you, and be grateful for what you have. Multiple image posts are the best. Video seems to be going up, but polls were it last year. And then last but not least, just engage the audience. Ask the question, comment and like on other people's stuff, and then share personal things. Be vulnerable, be yourself, and allow people in. And if you do that, you're going to have much, much better engagement on LinkedIn. And if you want to know more about how you can do this yourself, well, one, you can outsource it to us in our Managed Influence program, or what you can do is you can join our PodRec and Influence Academy, because we teach all sorts of courses on how to increase your overall engagement. By the way, it isn't just having a great LinkedIn posting system or strategy. It's also when you have to have the right branded language, and you have all of the different components that you need to have a great social media presence. All right. So for Jessica and all of us here at ProudMouth, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.